What if the world you see isn't real? Like, what if someone else is putting thoughts and labels right in front of your eyes and you don't even know it? Welcome to the cool, weird, impossible.
Welcome. Yeah, today we're diving into some really fascinating and sometimes, honestly, pretty unsettling material you shared with us. We're looking at the collision, really, of artificial intelligence and virtual reality. It gives us this glimpse into a future where, our digital and physical worlds, they might not be separate anymore. They could actually merge. And the impacts, well, they look massive.
Massive. And maybe a little terrifying. Are we actually building a better future here, or are we just, like, crafting a more elaborate digital cage? That's kind of the big question we want to unpack today, looking at the info you sent over. So, yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, let's start by painting a picture. Something that sounds like pure sci-fi, but according to some of this material, it's where augmented reality, AR, could be heading. Picture this. You're just walking down a normal street, right? Minding your own business, but maybe through, I don't know, smart glasses or contacts floating over people's heads, you see these little bubbles of information.
Okay, like
Right.
like digital graffiti sprayed across reality,
Mhm.
sort of a profile hovering over someone, maybe their name, their job, something simple.
Exactly. And at first you might think, oh, okay, maybe that's useful, sharing basic info. But here's where one perspective takes a really dark turn. It asks, what happens if that info isn't from the person themselves? What if third parties can inject their own content into those bubbles,
Yeah.
right into your field of vision?
Oh, that's not good. Like a filter layer, but one I didn't choose.
Yeah.
And it's about someone else, but I'm seeing it.
Even worse, what if it's a paid filter layer? So only people who pay, or maybe use a certain app, they see these tags, and they use it to label people in the real world with these persistent floating words. Tagging people, like actual people walking around. What kind of labels are we even talking about here? This sounds, I don't know, really sinister.
Well, the material doesn't exactly hold back. The examples given are pretty provocative, things like bold, flashing words, alcoholic, immigrant, atheist, racist, or even political stuff like Democrat or Republican just floating there.
Wait, hold on. So the person being tagged, they might not even know this label is floating over their head for others to see? That's just asking for trouble, isn't it? How easily could that just amplify every single division we already have? Taking all the worst parts of it, like polarized online shouting matches and just spraying it onto the street. It feels like a recipe for immediate judgment, maybe ostracism, mistrust. It sounds like the ultimate social weapon, just hovering there. It definitely raises huge questions about, whose reality you'd actually be experiencing. But that's not the only vision presented. There's a contrast offered, mentioning Kiichi Matsuda's hyperreality video. In that future, the digital and physical haven't just been overlaid, they've completely merged. There's no real world to escape back to because the digital information is the reality. The metaverse, in that sense, is human reality.
So you couldn't just, like, take off the glasses and be back to normal because this hyper reality is the new normal, this constant, overwhelming blend of digital stuff and physical stuff everywhere.
Exactly. Which then leads to another point raised, the potential for corporate control over all that data, over that virtual
Yeah.
space. It kind of mirrors the concerns we have now about powerful groups manipulating social media, right? But imagine the data collection potential in truly immersive tech. When the digital layer covers everything you see, hear, interact with, it could be way more powerful, more invasive than just tracking clicks on a flat screen. Every glance, every pause, every reaction, potentially trackable.
Okay. So potential futures range from creepy digital labels to, like, full-blown digital reality. What about the experience right now? Using the tech that exists. The sources talked about that too, did they? The user side of things.
They did, yeah. There was a bit from, I think it was Reddit, talking about someone's early experience with something like the Apple Vision Pro. They described using it for spatial videos or having this huge virtual screen floating there for work and then taking it off.
And they felt like they'd lost a sense. I saw that bit. Like something was physically missing from how they saw the world once the tech was gone. That idea of a constant data overlay, even just moving around your own house, it sounds incredibly engaging, maybe too engaging.
It certainly points towards a really high level of immersion, yeah, and maybe potential dependence. Which connects to another quote in the material from a tech investor with a pretty stark view. They compared Apple to a tech fentanyl dealer that poses as a rehab provider.
Wow. Tech fentanyl.
Yeah.
That's a really disturbing way to put it, is the idea that these technologies are designed to be that engrossing, that addictive. I mean, that comparison alone makes you really question the motives behind pushing this stuff so hard.
Well, that kind of intense feeling, that engagement, feeds right into this bigger debate the sources get into. Is this VRR stuff actually going to become ubiquitous, like smartphones are now? Will we all be wearing some form of this eventually?
Right now, it feels like.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I mean, the arguments against it seem strong. The hardware is still pretty clunky, right? These aren't exactly subtle glasses you just forget about.
That's definitely a key barrier mentioned. The current form factors, yeah, they're not great for just wearing all day, every day. And another point raised is that, unlike phones or watches, there isn't really a clear historical thing it's replacing or obviously evolving from for consumers anyway. So the argument is, maybe it just won't catch on with everyday people, despite all the hype, citing, the fact that adoption isn't huge yet.
But then, there are the arguments for it becoming everywhere, right? Tech always gets smaller, cheaper. Super fast.
Right. The material points out, think about pro video cameras. Used to be massive, super expensive. Now you can shoot amazing video on like a DSLR or even your phone, stuff that seemed impossible just a decade or two ago.
That evolution is undeniable. And you've got companies like Apple. They're masters at creating user experiences that pull people in. Plus, they have just billions to throw at R&D. And maybe the tech spins off in weird ways we don't expect, like VR car windshields.
Exactly. Augmented reality windshields are mentioned as a possibility, which, yeah, sounds potentially amazing for navigation.
Or terrifyingly distracting.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong with digital pop-ups on your windshield while you're driving? Yikes!
Well, yeah. And predicting how tech gets adopted is always messy. We're reminded of tech failures that actually paved the way for later successes, like the Apple Mutant total flop as a PDA, but you can see the seeds of the iPhone there. Or, get this, JCPenney apparently tried interactive TV shopping way back in the 80s. It failed partly because people literally thought nobody's ever going to buy things from the internet, which turned out to be pretty wrong.
Huh. Okay, fair point. So just because the first versions are clunky or fail doesn't mean the whole idea is dead. It might just be the timing or the approach. So the suggestion is what?
Yeah.
That the sheer engagement factor, that feeling of having gained a new sense or feeling lost without it, like how we feel about our phones now, that might be enough. Enough to drive people to use it, monetize it, and eventually make it commonplace.
That seems to be the implication, that the subjective experience, the power of engagement, could overcome the initial hurdles.
But that feeling, that dependence, feeling like something's missing when it's gone, that feels like the core issue, doesn't it? It drives adoption, sure, but it also makes you think about, well, the other downsides.
Like security risks and addiction. If this tech weaves itself so deeply into our lives or overlays our actual reality, the risks just feel amplified.
They absolutely do. One security source really focuses on the technical challenge here.
Yeah.
These AI-boosted VR apps, they're incredibly demanding. They need huge network resources, massive processing power.
And that strain, plus just the inherent complexity of it all, it creates, and I quote, new attack vectors for opportunistic cybercriminals. Basically, more ways for hackers to get in.
So the fact that it's so cutting-edge and resource-hungry actually makes it less secure in some ways? That feels backwards. Are there any security positives mentioned? Anything good?
Briefly, yeah. The same source mentions VR can be great for security training, simulating cyber attacks, letting security teams practice collaborating during a crisis in a virtual environment. AI can even help analyze how they respond to make the training better, like a virtual boot camp for cyber defense.
Okay, well, that's something, I guess, using it for defense,
Yeah.
not just as something to attack. But let's shift to the other big concern that always comes up with new tech: addiction. Is VR more addictive than, say, video games or scrolling social media?
Well, a study discussed suggests that right now, the prevalence of VR addiction seems pretty similar to other things like gaming or social networking. So, broadly speaking, not necessarily more addictive today.
Okay, slightly reassuring.
Yeah.
But did the study find anything specific about VR that might predict addiction? Something unique to that experience?
Yes, and this is really the key finding. Feelings of embodiment that you get in VR seem to positively predict addiction.
Embodiment. Okay, what does that mean exactly? Like feeling like you are the avatar.
Pretty much. It's that sense that your virtual body is your actual body, or just the strong feeling that you are physically present, truly there inside the virtual world, not just looking at a screen from the outside. And the study found the stronger that feeling of presence, the more likely a user was to show addictive patterns.
Okay, now the little conspiracy theorist on my shoulder is buzzing.
Yeah.
Because if the whole point of future VR and AR development is to make it more realistic, right?
Yeah.
To deepen that sense of presence, to intensify that very feeling of embodiment.
Yes. The researchers themselves speculate that future tech improvements, specifically aimed at increasing embodiment, could potentially make VR more addictive than the technologies we have now. This was based on a survey about 750 VR users using a version of the game addiction scale. And the main predictors that popped out were, unsurprisingly, hours spent per week using VR and these feelings of embodiment.
So the more time you spend and the more you feel like you're really there,
Yeah.
that's the potential danger zone.
Got it.
Although the source did add that nuance, right? That just being really engaged isn't the same as being addicted.
That's a crucial distinction, yeah. High engagement can be positive. Addiction involves negative consequences, loss of control, but that potential link between better embodiment and higher risk. It's definitely something to keep an eye on, especially as the tech aims to blur that line between virtual and real, which leads us right into the really dark side of how AI can amplify human manipulation, what one source just flat out calls social engineering nightmare fuel.
Ah, yes. Nightmare fuel. We talked about AR overlays being used for manipulation, but this is about AI making the deception itself, like super scalable and maybe invisible.
Exactly. Social engineering at its core is just lying, right? Deception, exploiting basic human traits, curiosity, greed, trust, wanting to help to trick people into giving up info or doing something harmful. And the source highlights it's overwhelmingly more prevalent as an attack than trying to brute force complex computer defenses.
Because hacking people is often easier than hacking code.
Yeah.
Sadly true.
Essentially, yes. And AI and VR. They can be the subject of scams like fake AI tools that are actually malware. But even worse, AI can enhance the deception itself in some really sophisticated ways. The material details several specific methods AI turbocharges social engineering.
All right, lay it on me. What kind of AI-powered psychological warfare are we looking at here?
Okay, first, poisoning chatbots. Imagine attackers feeding bad information into the AI that runs a company's internal help desk chatbot, or maybe a smart assistant. Then an employee asks the chatbot, say, hey, can you verify this wire transfer request? The chatbot, working off the poisoned data, says, yep, looks legit, confirming a fake request from a scammer. The source notes this might be easier on private internal systems.
The AI assistant is literally lying to you, but it doesn't know it's lying because it was fed lies first. That just messes with your whole sense of who or what to trust internally.
Precisely. Then you have LLM bots for business email compromise. LLM, large language model, the AI behind things like ChatGPT. BEC is where scammers pretend to be, like the CEO, to trick finance departments into sending money. Now, attackers are apparently using AI to analyze past emails between, say, the target employee and the real CEO. The AI learns the CEO's writing style, their quirks, everything. Then an LLM bot mimics that style perfectly, maybe even jumping into an existing email thread so convincingly the victim has no idea. It's not the real boss asking for that urgent, fraudulent wire transfer. This happens manually now, but AI automates it, makes it scalable.
It's like a personalized deepfake email generator designed specifically to trick you. That sounds incredibly effective and terrifying.
It does. And think about enhanced QR codes, those little square barcodes. Attackers are already adding malicious QR codes to legitimate stuff, or even just sticking fake ones over real ones out in the world. Now imagine future VR or AR interfaces where scanning things might be seamless, almost subconscious. You just look at something, it scans. You might be way less likely to stop and think, wait, should I trust this QR code before your device takes you to a phishing site or downloads malware?
You're just interacting with the digital world layered onto the real one, scanning stuff that pops up, and boom, one of them is a trap. Great.
Then, obviously, deepfakes. Using AI to make incredibly realistic fake images, videos, voices. Voice scams are specifically mentioned, an AI deepfake perfectly mimicking the voice of a loved one, calling you in a panic, needing money right now. The source calls deepfakes highly disruptive for social engineering because they hit us on such a visceral, believable level.
We've all heard about those examples. They're getting disturbingly good. If you literally can't trust your own eyes or ears anymore because AI can fake them so well, who do you trust?
And you can combine these. Think about dynamic AI lie systems. An AI system designed to chat with you automatically, maybe over days or weeks, building rapport, establishing trust before it makes the ask. Like automating the whole grooming phase of those advanced fee scams, the 419s, the Nigerian prince emails. The AI handles all the initial back and forth until you're psychologically hooked.
So the AI can automate the entire, like, seduction part of scam, building the trust before going for the kill.
Yeah.
Wow, that's next level manipulation at scale.
And it gets even more targeted. AI for targeted scams. Using AI to hoover up every scrap of public information about potential victims. The example given is taking a list, say journalists' emails, and having AI scrape the web for everything about them, their articles, their interests, their social media connections. Then the AI crafts highly personalized phishing messages or scam proposals tailored specifically to that individual's known interests or vulnerabilities, making the scam vastly more believable and effective than generic spam.
Okay, that is the part that really keeps the conspiracist in me awake. It's not just efficient, it's AI making social engineering scalable, automated, and deeply psychologically targeted. It stops being random noise and becomes precision-guided manipulation by bots that mimic people, build trust, and exploit exactly what they learn about you. How do you even defend against that as a society?
It definitely poses some huge challenges for trust online and maybe even offline going forward. But it is important to remember the sources don't only paint this bleak picture. They also spend time on some really significant positive uses for the same tech, a necessary counterbalance to all the risks we've just covered.
Okay, yeah, let's take a breath from the nightmare fuel. Where is this tech actually helping people? The silver linings.
A really big one is VR in mental health therapy. VRT, they call it. And Workforce makes it clear this isn't just theory, it's already happening and showing real promise. The basic idea is immersing a patient in a controlled virtual environment. There, they can interact with situations or triggers they fear or usually avoid, but in a safe space, with a therapist guiding them.
So, like, practicing exposure therapy but without the real-world risk. That makes a lot of sense for things like phobias or anxiety.
Exactly. And there's growing science behind it. Studies mentioned show it's effective for anxiety, depression, even more effective than just audio for mindfulness and stress reduction.
What kind of conditions are they actually using VR therapy for?
The list provided is pretty impressive. PTSD letting veterans or trauma survivors safely confront triggers. Anxiety and depression practicing stress management techniques in simulated situations. Phobias, gradual, controlled exposure to heights, spiders, public speaking, whatever it is. Autism providing a safe space to practice tricky social skills like eye contact or conversations. Also schizophrenia simulating daily encounters to practice coping. Dementia and mild cognitive impairment or MCI helping with memory recall. Cognitive engagement, even letting people virtually revisit meaningful places from their past. And also stress and chronic pain offering immersive, peaceful virtual environments as a form of escape or distraction.
That's actually incredible. Using this deeply immersive tech for healing, for improving people's lives in very real ways. What are the advantages over traditional therapy?
Well, the key benefits mentioned are providing that inherently safe environment, increasing patient attention and engagement because it feels real, giving therapists real-time data on reactions, allowing for highly customized sessions tailored exactly to the patient's needs, enabling remote access for people in rural or underserved areas, and just letting people practice vital life skills repeatedly until they build confidence.
Are they innovating within VR therapy? Maybe adding AI into the mix?
Yeah. The source mentions things like AI virtual therapists that can guide exercises, using biofeedback sensors to track, say, heart rate during exposure, gamification to make it more engaging, especially for kids, using it for crisis simulation training for therapists themselves, and even multi-user VR rooms for family or couples therapy. Of course, they also note the limitations. It's not a cure-all, probably not for the most severe conditions. We lack really long-term outcome data, and yes, those privacy and data security concerns pop up again.
Naturally. Always the data privacy. But still, helping people face down phobias, practice social interactions, maybe helping dementia patients connect with memories. That's a powerful argument for the good this tech can do. What about education? Was that another positive area?
Yes, another very promising application is AI combined with VR in education. One source detailed a specific study focusing on middle school fine art. They contrasted traditional teaching, lectures, maybe looking at slides, with even older multimedia approaches that often just devolved into students passively clicking through presentations, the mouse party problem, as they called it. Not real engagement.
Right, just clicking next, 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 not really learning.
Exactly. So this study introduced AI and VR specifically to foster deep learning in art class, and the results were pretty striking. It significantly improved student concentration and creativity compared to the old methods. And, get this, it also reduced test anxiety among the students.
Wow. Better creativity and less anxiety. That's like the holy grail for educators.
Yeah.
How did the AI and VR combo achieve that?
Well, the source explains it by linking it back to learning theories. VR gets students out of the flat, 2D classroom, putting them in a realistic 3D space where they can explore art differently. AI tools can then help analyze things like colors, composition, brushstrokes in an intuitive way. So combined, it makes learning feel more natural, more interesting. It offers multiple perspectives beyond just the static picture. And it puts the student in charge. They're actively exploring, interacting, not just passively listening. They connected this to ideas about deep learning, needing critical thinking and applying knowledge, and also Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences theory, suggesting students learn better through varied, multidimensional experiences.
So instead of just seeing a flat picture of, say, a Van Gogh in a textbook, you could like walk around a virtual museum in VR, get up close, maybe have an AI point out the impasto technique or analyze the color palette.
That's exactly the kind of application they're talking about, giving students a much deeper, more active perceptual understanding. The examples were things like AI analysis tools and those VR virtual art museums. It basically leverages the immersion and the novelty to make learning more exciting and more effective.
Okay, so therapy and education are clearly huge potential wins for this technology. What about the really big picture, like the economy? Is there a massive financial upside predicted?
Oh, yeah. Zooming out to the global economic view, one source, PwC, throws out a number that's frankly staggering. They estimate that VR and AR combined could deliver a 1.4 trillion boost to the global economy by 2030.
1.4 trillion pounds.
Yeah.
I can't even really picture that number. Where does all that value supposedly come from?
It's projected to come from boosting productivity, enabling new kinds of innovation, and totally changing how we do training. They estimate it'll impact something like 23 million jobs globally. Key sectors set to benefit hugely include healthcare, but also retail. They predict an 184 billion boost just for retail by 2030, and also product development, seeing maybe 123 billion globally.
So things like, I don't know, virtual fitting rooms so you don't have to guess sizes online, or using AR on your phone to see if that sofa really fits in your living room before you buy it, collaborating with colleagues in a shared virtual space, even if your country's apart, that kind of stuff.
Exactly those kinds of applications. Making business processes way more efficient, enabling new ways to design and sell things, creating totally new customer experiences that just weren't possible before.
Okay, so the business case, the economic argument for this tech becoming widespread seems incredibly strong. But what are the biggest roadblocks to actually getting there, beyond just making the tech better and cheaper?
Well, PwC points out that, maybe surprisingly, the biggest hurdles might not even be technical anymore. They might be cultural. Things like simple public apathy, people just not caring, or active distrust of these new technologies.
Yeah, I can see that. After everything we've talked about today, the manipulation potential, the addiction risks, the privacy issues, asking people to step into a company's virtual world, or letting that company overlay digital stuff onto your reality.
The source calls it a leap of faith for a lot of people, especially when society is already kind of struggling with trusting tech platforms and how our data is used. The argument is that the industry really needs to focus on educating businesses, educating the public, and actively addressing these cultural fears and concerns if they want this tech to really take off everywhere.
So getting people comfortable, getting them to trust it, or at least understand the value proposition versus the risks. That's the main cultural challenge now.
Precisely. It's not just about building the tech, it's about building the social acceptance around it.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've seen this incredible potential, right? Revolutionizing therapy, transforming education, boosting the economy massively. But then there's the dark side. Sophisticated AI-driven scams, the potential for addiction, huge privacy questions, and even that really unsettling possibility of a future where our perception of reality itself is managed or manipulated by others.
It really is this powerful duality, isn't it? A technology that could enable so much good, but also carries these profound risks. And you, listening right now, you're living through this transition. How do we navigate this as a society, as individuals? How do we steer towards the benefits while mitigating these dangers, especially when the lines could become so blurred?
It leaves you with a pretty heavy thought, doesn't it? If that line between what's real and what's virtual, between information you can trust and incredibly sophisticated AI-generated lies, if that line gets blurrier and blurrier thanks to AI and VR, how will any of us really know what's true anymore? Who to trust? Or even, like one source hinted at the start, if the world we're seeing is actually the real one at all. Thanks for diving deep with us today into the cool, weird, and possible world of AI and virtual reality. If you found this exploration interesting, please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next deep dive.